The Kawasaki W800 is a Japanese interpretation of the classic British Triumph Bonneville. And as pretty as it looks, a lot of people hate it, like a Royal Enfield or Kim Kardashian. Some of the shots fired at the bike include, it's not a genuine classic, it lacks soul and personality, and it's slow. It does sound a bit like a Kardashian. So is it a legitimately good ride, I'm back to the bike now, or a sad pastiche of the iconic Bonnie? Well, I'm lucky enough to have two friends. Hang on. Who own W Series bikes. My mate Jack commutes on his W800 every day, and my friend Matt has been touring on the older model, the W650. So in the past few years I've been riding them and servicing them both a fair bit, the bikes, guys. So I thought it's high time I take an honest look at what it's like to own, ride and maintain the Kawasaki Bonneville W800. Retro-style bikes are everywhere these days, so it's hard to imagine what an anomaly the W650 was when it was released in Japan in 1999. It featured traditional styling, an overbuilt 650cc air-cooled twin and, well, that's kind of about it. But it really looked the goods. It was reliable, it offered modest performance and sold well in Europe and in Japan. Americans yelled and screamed that they wanted it too, but when it finally arrived it turned out nobody actually wanted to pay for it, much like the MT-01 or Obamacare. And that's because the newly revived Triumph released a bike with two features more important to Americans, 100 more cc's and 260% more name. After only 2 years, the W650 was removed from sale in the US. The rest of the world loved the 650 until emissions restrictions took it from the market. The W800 is essentially the same bike, but with fuel injection and an extra 100 cc's. And despite the changes, it still looks terrific. The headlight, the gauges, the side covers, and the guards, they all look great. To my eyes, it's more proportionate and correct looking than any other retro bike on the market. And all those parts are metal too. Listen. So the basic structure is there, but the actual finish is disappointing. It features tank graphics that, up close, are actually a collection of pixels that start and end pretty abruptly. Other colour schemes are available which suit the bike a lot more than this particular one, but nearly all had this stupid digital effect that, on close inspection, looks awful. But then look at the engine. It is gorgeous. On the right-hand side, at least, where the bevel drive is. The other side just looks kind of meh. But compared to such incredible beauty, no one cares about that. It'd be like staring at the floor of the Sistine Chapel or Gianna Michael's ass. Besides the paint, the only real faux pas is the injector covers. The W has this lazy plate on the right-hand side and this monstrosity on the left. But that aside, I think the bike looks wonderful. Riding it, however, well, it's less inspiring. Everything is pretty good. The gearbox, controls, seat and mirrors. And it handles pretty well too, despite the cheap shocks that can make it feel floaty at higher speeds. Everything is very competent. It's really quite satisfying to ride. The only issue I have is with the engine. It's a little bit slow by modern standards, but I don't care about that. Hell, I love the SR500 and it's been said that couldn't pull a fat kid across greased linoleum. The problem is more that the engine lacks character. It's clinically smooth and with only a tiny buzz through the bars to remind you there's an engine underneath. You know those motorcycle review videos where people scream when going around a corner? The W doesn't make me do that. You get on the noise and... To be fair, the W does wind up fairly quickly. It makes most of its torque down low, so for city riding it's great. But at higher speeds it will run out of breath quite quickly. That low down torque helps the W excel in one area. It is a terrific commuter bike. It carries its weight incredibly well at a walking pace, so lane splitting is a joy. The brakes are lacking though. The front, which is a disc, really has you yanking on the anchors. The rear, which is a drum, works really well. If I was just looking at the way the bike looks and rides, I'd be impressed, but still left a little bit flat. But it's the little things that make owning the W particularly good. It's a practical bike that has to rely on its features rather than just a name. It's got a helmet lock, a single seat key removal, and the same key locks the bars and the fuel cap. The once thought endangered toolkit. A neat little spot to put a U-lock, a centre stand that comes standard, tie-down points for your personal baggage, some grab rails, and I could go on. Okay, I will go on. The Speedo and Tacho are nicely styled. It's got a chrome-covered oil filter, welds that actually look pretty damn good, and ridiculously easy air filter removal. But the really beautiful part about the W800 is on the inside, much like a jam donut or a fat girl. One of the best things about owning a motorcycle is the ease of servicing. I find it fun, rewarding, and calming.
Why won't you stop?
Most of it is easy on any bike, changing spark plugs, cleaning the air filter, and bleeding the brakes. One of the trickier things to do is the valve clearances. This can range from the straightforward screw and lock nut type to the more complicated Ducati Desmo Quattro heads, Italian for fuck it, I'm just going to sell it. More ordinarily, the process is somewhere in between. It'll likely involve removing cams, replacing washers and grommets, and torquing things. But with the W, you get everything apart, all of which is 10mm bolts and 6mm Allen keys. You push some wires aside and you're there. And when you've found TDC and measured the clearance, you stick a finger in and pull back the rocker arms to fish out the shim. And you measure and replace as needed. And that's the hardest bit of servicing you'll need to do on the W. There's even an indentation in the head that the manual states is for feeler gauges. You dip them in there so you don't scratch the underside of a rocker arm. Show me an easier bike to do valve clearances on. Shut up. In this regard, it's really an incredibly well-built and well-thought-out engine that's a tribute to the original Kawasaki design team. God, all this positivity is boring, isn't it? So let's do some nitpicking. It's a rubbish dirt bike, a crap drag bike, and it's not bulletproof. Well, literally anyway. Owners of the W650 have done over 100,000 miles without any problems at all, so it's safe to say the W800 is also a bike capable of high mileage. But to be fair, there are niggling points. The seat gets uncomfortable after a few hours, the fuel injection gets choppy when cold, and the battery is somewhere hidden in there. But the main flaw with the bike is its exhaust system, and it's not that it sounds like this. It's because it's a whole sealed unit. The mufflers are pinned to the exhaust, which means you'll either have to cut them or replace the entire system from scratch, which will cost around, Jesus Christ. Compare that to every competitor who just uses bolt-on cans. The exhaust cost points to a greater problem with the W. As America doesn't have the bike, it means that there's no huge aftermarket network of parts or information. And say what you will about Americans, they have a thriving base of manufacturing that can produce things to fix or improve any product, from making motorcycles run better to shooting up primary schools with greater efficiency. As such, if you're looking to customise a bike and are unwilling to modify, manufacture, or make parts fit, the W isn't your best choice. It's a bike that's best left mostly stock. So America's out, but if you're in Europe, Asia, or Australia, you're lucky enough to have access to a terrific motorcycle. Not if you listen to some internet snipers though. It's slow. Well, okay, but so's the Bonneville and the V7. If you want to go fast, spend $2,000 on a 929 and a bag of speed and go nuts. It lacks personality. Yes, but so does its nearest competitor. But if you're kicking around on a Ducati Sports Classic, then fair call. It's not a genuine classic. True, but go ride your Ariel Square 4 every day and see how you go. The main Oh, you mean genuine like the Triumph Bonneville? Well, the Hinckley and later Bonnevilles have nothing to do with the original except for the name. They're fine bikes really, but that badge means nothing. The W800 looks more like an original Triumph than a Triumph does, and it feels more like one too without having to push it everywhere. Up against the air-cooled Hinckley Bonneville, the W handles better, feels a little bit quicker to 100, and is definitely better designed. If you're saying it's not genuine and you've got a Guzzi or a Fine, then you're safe. But if you're taking pot shots from the Triumph camp, hiding behind an illusion of authenticity, then give yourself a fucking uppercut. Because while the W800 is a bike that's just okay to ride, it's absolutely exceptional to own. It's incredibly easy to service, it's very well built, littered with well thought out details, and more than any other retro style bike on the market, really does look right. For people not too concerned with the name on the badge and not too worried about getting anywhere particularly quickly, you'd struggle to find a better motorcycle than the Kawasaki W800.